Crazy what
Okay,
I
I'm
am.
really excited about this one because I was saying in Breaking News, which is for Gisna Club subscribers, you can join on the Patreon or via Apple Premium subscriptions. That
Well worth
yeah,
it.
sorry.
It's
Oh,
well worth
thanks.
it.
I thought you were congratulating me for sounding professional, and I thought
I mean, I do usually do that, but
because
no.
I don't usually. It's a standout when I do it well, but
Yeah, now I fucked it. Sorry.
So, I was saying in an episode of Breaking News that I was apologizing to the listeners because I had done the episode I did about Chappaquiddick, and I had just like very briefly gone through like, well, you know, JFK died and then Bobby died and then blah, and a bunch of people were like, wait, there was another Kennedy that was running for president that got assassinated, and I was like, that's on me because just the gist is like no assumed knowledge. That's a very important part of what we do here. And I am just particularly Kennedy obsessive. And so I just assumed that was a thing people knew. But there were a lot of people who were like, I'm not really across the Kennedys much at all. They were even surprised when we did an episode about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy that that was even a thing. And I was like, okay, this is one of my weird like neurodiverse fixations that I assume people know lots about, but they don't. So, since people have asked for me to do a lot more Kennedy stories on Just the Gist, I was like, okay, well, no assumed knowledge. We need to do a base Kennedy episode.
Yes, Kennedy's 101.
Kennedy.
I need this because for some reason I know a lot of detailed shit about a lot of random shit, but the Kennedys just they never touch.
I mean, there's so many of them. It's just the gist, so I'm only going to, stick to the important ones or like the more sort of notable ones. But yes, that's a good way of putting it. This is Kennedy's 101. On Just the Gist, we've already done a couple of Kennedy adjacent episodes. We've done, like I said, the one on JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy and their untimely death in a plane crash caused by him. And we also did one on Chappaquiddick, which is about the youngest Kennedy brother being responsible for the death of a young woman called Mary Jo Kopechne in a car accident. And basically, there's a lot of Kennedy adjacent stories about how this mythical Camelot American royal family is actually a lot darker under the surface than you would think. And there's a bunch of these stories that I would like to tell. Oh my gosh, Marilyn Monroe, a whole bunch of other things.
Yes.
But before we do that,
I'm
we
so
need to do
pumped.
Kennedy 101.
Okay, yes, because I knew nothing about Chappaquiddick when we did that one, and I didn't know anything about the Carolyn Bessette stuff either. And I feel like there's so much in pop culture about the Kennedys that you don't even realize, and so all of these little links happen in my brain where I'm like, oh, that was that Simpsons reference or something. Everything links back to them. But my overall impression was like, this amazing, to be a Kennedy or be related to the Kennedys or in with the Kennedys was like really amazing. And like, it would be like being related to the Obamas or something. Like,
yeah, kind of.
But no, they're pieces of shit.
Yeah, we'll get into it. This is Kennedy 101. Hello and welcome to Just the Gist. I'm Rosie Waterland. This is the podcast where I tell entertaining stories about anything and everything, but with just the gist, just enough detail to make you sound impressive to your friends at a dinner party. Joining me today is just the network producer, Hayley Stavely, and we're doing Kennedy's 101. Pump. Yeah, okay. We're going to get into it. And like I said, there's a lot of them. They're prodigious breeders. So
I'm kind of tempted to take notes.
I mean, look, I'll put it all in the show notes. I will say 2 amazing resources that I've used for this. It's an audiobook I think I've listened to all the way through like 5 times. One's called The Kennedy Curse by James Patterson. One of the few non-fiction books he has written. And then there's...
I didn't know he'd written
Sorry?
I didn't know he'd written any non-fiction
It's a very famous book about the Kennedys.
Oh, okay.
And then there's another book I've talked about called Ask Not by a woman called Maureen Callahan. And yes, everyone, I got a few comments from people saying like, don't you know she's a massive right-wing Daily Mail writer? And I'm like, yeah. And it stands to reason that she would want to take down the left Democrats, like most lionized, admired royal political family, the Kennedys. But also, she's one of the only people who has really written about the way they treated women. And so, yes, I'm aware.
Well, people can be dicks and still have very useful, detailed knowledge.
Exactly. So there's Ask Not by Maureen Callahan and The Kennedy Curse by James Patterson. But I'll put a bunch of other links in the show notes. But yeah, here we go. Okay, are we ready for this?
All right.
So
I am so
the
ready.
Kennedys all starts in 1823 in Ireland and ends with one of them playing a brother who gets into a sticky situation with his other brother on the White Lotus. It's a colourful story. So,
okay.
Patrick Kennedy is born in 1823 in Ireland into a very Catholic Kennedy family. They're Catholic going back generations, which hadn't been easy for them at a time in Ireland when there was a lot of tension and fighting between Protestants and Catholics. They were a farming family, not very wealthy. In 1848, when he's 25, he moves to America because of the potato famine. My family came here from Ireland.
I was going to say, maybe you're distantly related several generations
I
back.
hope I'm related.
Which I would have thought would be cool, but now I think it would be bad.
He settles in Boston, in Massachusetts. He just works as a kind of labourer of different bits and pieces. I don't know, in 1848, what do you do? Like bang, steal things
Boston.
on other things?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Run around the street with a stick.
Yes, exactly. So he meets and marries a woman called Bridget, who had also come over from Ireland. They have 3 daughters and 2 sons. One of the sons dies of cholera when he's very young. And then Patrick himself gets cholera and dies in 1858 at the ripe old age of 35.
It is lucky you did not live back then. You would have died from cholera.
I would have died from cholera in 2 seconds. And I would have just died. The amount of things I would have died. Melanoma, I would have died of when I was like, I don't know,
Dysentery.
7. Dysentery. I'd be effed. I'd be effed. Most people were effed though, you know. You were lucky to survive childhood. True. Women were lucky to survive childbirth. Like it was just.
Yeah, I would have died.
Yeah, totally. Everything was just like, everyone just drank the water where they pooed and I don't know. It was all gross. So Bridget, Patrick's surviving wife, she was pretty smart and resourceful. They hadn't been wealthy by any means, but she is working in a stationery store to support her 4 remaining children. And eventually she saves enough money and buys the store herself. Yeah. Oh, wow. She then expands her little retail empire into a grocery store and a liquor store. But she only has enough money to send one of her children to school. So, of course, out of 3 daughters and 1 son, she chooses the son. So that son is Patrick Joseph Kennedy. He was born in 1858. And I love that it's how does it go? It's like he's Patrick Kennedy, then has Patrick Joseph Kennedy, and then the way the Irish people just use all the same names, like Patrick and Joseph. Eventually, some of these kids are just called Patrick, Joseph, Patrick, Kathleen, like
buy a name.
This is where it all started. So Patrick Joseph Kennedy goes to school until he's 14. And he leaves then to help his mother by helping out working in the stores that she's acquired, and then he's also working down at the docks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he saves the docks or the mines. I guess if you're in a city, it's the docks, and if you're in the country, it's the mines. And he saves enough money to buy a saloon in the city, like a kind of little bar. And then he buys another and another. And by the time he's 30, he's kind of built up a little hospitality empire. Yeah, like sort of the Boston's 1860s. And he's like pretty wealthy, not like crazy wealthy, but he's like definitely upper middle class in a way that he wasn't growing up. He's also interested in politics, and so he serves as a congressman and a senator for Massachusetts. He marries a woman called Mary Augusta, and they have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. One of the boys dies, so the only remaining boy is Joseph Patrick Kennedy, born 1888. So Patrick Joseph named his son Joseph Patrick.
What do you name the other kid?
I'm just telling you the ones that matter because there's too many people in this story. Got to keep it to just the gist. But probably the other one. Well, yeah. So Patrick Joseph's political career made him really popular in Boston. He also made an effort to get along with Catholics and Protestants, which was still a big deal back then. And he also made an effort to get along with non-Irish people, which was quite rare because
what an open mind.
Like back then it was getting better, but the Irish were still kind of seen like second-class citizens in the US for a while after they first started coming over from Ireland. And it took a long time for them to sort of drop that kind of, like, there was what people called racism against Irish people for quite a long time. And it, like, to the point where it was a really big deal when JFK ended up president. He was the first Irish Catholic president. But anyway, he gets along with like non-Irish people, Catholics, Protestants. He's very popular in Boston. By the time he dies in 1929, age 71, hundreds of mourners line the streets for his funeral, like, procession through the city. And so his son, Joseph Patrick Kennedy, born in 1888.
I do need
I know. And like, you know, these are just I'm giving you just the gist of like the olden days.
Yeah, but I want a solid
I'll let
foundation.
you know when we get to the ones that, you know, you have to start taking notice of. But I just thought it was important to let you know how they came to be.
I love a background.
So Patrick Joseph's son, Joseph Patrick Kennedy, born 1888. And like I said, thanks to his father's success being the 1800s, Justin Hems owning the bars and being a politician, Joseph has a pretty comfortable upper middle class childhood. He goes to private school and then he goes to Harvard. He graduates in 1912 with a degree in economics and he immediately goes into business. He really wants to be rich and he also really wants to be important and respected. He's very ambitious. He has like an innate understanding of networking and politics. So yeah, he really wants to be rich, but he also wants to be important and respected. He's very ambitious. He has an innate understanding of like networking and politics and also optics. And he's super calculated about his career and his vision for himself from very early on. So in 1914, just 2 years after he graduates from Harvard, he marries a woman called Rose Fitzgerald. Her father is the mayor of Boston and she's considered like the most eligible bachelorette in the city. And so to Joseph, that was a match that was more about like being advantageous to him rather than like a love connection.
Gosh, a man marrying a woman for a social
Well,
advantage.
yeah, I mean, the thing with his family, like his father had built up this, you know, sort of mini pub empire. And they had like decent money, not a crazy amount of money, but also it was new money. They were Irish. Like it was just he wanted to get in with like upper echelons of society, you know. So Rose Fitzgerald, now Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, immediately starts having lots of babies, and Joseph Kennedy immediately focuses on making money, and also, like he wouldn't have called it this at the time, but he definitely focuses on building his brand. So, for example, his father had owned some shares in a bank, and at one point it was threatened with being taken over by some other investors. And so Joseph Kennedy borrows $45,000 from family and he buys the bank himself, and then he does a massive press blitz. Like he really understands the press. He does all these interviews with newspapers, branding himself as the youngest bank owner and president in America, even though it was kind of just a bank that his dad kind of owned and he just paid some debts off. And so he knows how to like, tell the story, the optics. And so all of that press around that got him a lot of attention and got him into like more important finance rooms. And so he moves over into working in the stock market. And this is before the stock market is regulated. So Joseph Kennedy basically makes a buttload of money doing a lot of insider trading. So he figured out really early how to use the press again. So he would buy stock and then he would go to the press. He would often pay journalists, like give them a cut to like plant really good stories about the stock. So then the stock price would shoot up. And when it did, he would quickly sell before the stock price plummeted.
So like what Trump is
Pretty
doing
much,
right now.
yeah. So he makes a lot of money doing that. He also knows that the 1929 stock market crash is coming. Rather than warn anyone, he like kind of takes advantage of that, sells off a bunch of his stock right before the crash to other people, and then after the crash buys all his stock back for like pennies on the dollar. So he like makes out really well in the stock market crash of 1929. He also, it comes out later, made a lot of money bootlegging, so importing liquor during Prohibition when there was a period in America where liquor was banned. He was importing it secretly, and this is when he developed close ties with the mafia that he took advantage of for the rest of his life, to the point where they even helped get his sons elected into government. I mean, the reason they sort of know for sure that he was doing this is that when Prohibition lifted, literally like the next day, he was like, oh, like I have this liquor import business fully operational and ready to go. Like, it was like, how could you have built that in 2 hours? Like, he just like took off the like laundry sign, and it was like liquor.
But like first Simpsons reference.
Exactly.
That's like exactly what happens in the Prohibition episode.
So
Rex Banner.
He basically makes a lot of money doing a lot of dodgy stuff. He like buys a lot of companies. He invests in movie studios, has an affair with Gloria Swanson, a big movie star for a while, sort of gets in with the mafia-connected people in Hollywood, like Frank Sinatra. He ends up like getting very rich very fast. Fortune magazine does their very first rich list in 1958. And in that issue of Fortune, he's listed in the $300 to $400 million range, which is about $3 billion in today's money. So he had a lot of money. But once he's rich, he wants power and respect, because he may be a gazillionaire, but there's still two things stopping him from breaking into important, respected circles. One is that he's new money. And the other is that he's Irish Catholic. So he decides the best way for him to try and get some like power and influence outside of just being a rich dude is going into politics. And he has an old connection with Franklin D. Roosevelt, who is about to run for president. So Joseph Kennedy like gets in there with him, just starts donating like massive amounts of money to his campaign, really campaigns heavily for him with his influence in Boston. And so when Roosevelt becomes president, he kind of owes Joseph Kennedy something for his help. So he makes him the first head of the newly formed Securities and Exchange Commission, which is nuts because that is the thing that regulates the stock market. There was some rumblings in the press at the time, like this is the guy who literally like abused that stock market to get rich. But then other people were like, yeah, so he's the best one to know how to regulate it. But anyway, this is just the dodgy, like nepotism-y world of politics, still the same, even back then. So from that position, he builds his way up to sort of different positions in the government, eventually becoming ambassador to the United Kingdom. He and his wife, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, have Joseph Jr. in 1915, John in 1917, Rosemary in 1918, Kathleen in 1920, Eunice in 1921, Patricia in 1924, Robert in 1925, Jean in 1928, and Edward in 1932.
Having even one baby back then would have been horrific. Just so like that vag must have been just destroyed.
And despite the fact he's working and she's having all these babies, they do not have a loving marriage. Like he just pretty much the second they get married, he's just off working, because in his mind, a marriage is like your wife. It's almost like a business arrangement. I have to have children because that is what you do. and I go off and live my life and work in other places, come home occasionally, have sex with her once, get her pregnant, and then leave again. Like her role is at home and he does other things. So, I mean, she wants to divorce him really early on. That's not the marriage she imagined for herself, but her very Catholic father refuses to give her permission. And so she's kind of stuck in it and she decides just to make the best of it. It's like he has his life, I have mine kind of thing. But so it's essentially like a pretty loveless marriage, although an enduring one. I mean, they are the parents of what, one president, one almost president, like she is considered like, the Kennedy matriarch who really holds things together. Like she sticks in the marriage. She's like, I'm a Kennedy. I'm in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so how many kids was that?
How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know. Ugh.
That's too many.
So Joseph Kennedy, he, after all this sort of wrangling in politics and, taking certain positions and kissing Roosevelt's ass and becoming UK ambassador, he wants to be president. He's like, that's the ultimate. I have the money. I have what I want is the ultimate respect and power. And in America, that's president.
I'm getting Jafar.
It is a little Jafari. So he is totally focused on himself for that role until he messes up by being like super racist and a fan of Hitler. Whoops. So
tricky one to come back from.
So when he's ambassador to the UK and World War II is kind of imminent, he is very public about the fact that he thinks Hitler like kind of has a point with the Jews. Like he says that, like he's, when people had gone to the Germany and then not seen the worst of it, but I was watching this documentary where people who worked on his team were like, we came back and we said they are harassing Jewish people in the streets and all these like, kinds of things. He was just like, well, don't you think they bring it on themselves? Like he was very anti-Semitic. And he also had this very isolationist view of like, I don't want America getting involved in any war. Like it's between England and Germany or, who like leave us out of it. We don't want to be part of it. Like he didn't think America should be part of any of it.
Okay, you need to do the JTG of Roald Dahl because Roald Dahl plugs right into
they were probably mates. I don't know. Yeah, they were probably mates. And he thinks like he's the US ambassador to the UK and he's over there representing America kind of saying, I think we should appease Hitler. Like he thought Hitler's going to win. He was even quoted saying, if England like goes to war with Hitler, he'll be in Buckingham Palace in 2 weeks. Like he thought Hitler would win. He thought like, let's stay out of the war. Let's appease him. And he read the room and that's the side he picked kind of thing. Yikes. Then London starts getting bombed during the Blitz, and as the UK ambassador, he lives in London, but he takes off and hides at a country house. And
of course. Did he find a magical wardrobe?
Possibly, but this was at a time when the royal family made a point of staying in Buckingham Palace, even though London was being bombed. So America is really embarrassed that he went and hid in the country while everyone was getting bombed. Fair. And so when the US decides to go to war to support the UK in World War II, he kind of has to resign because everybody knows, he kind of didn't want to.
He's not on that
He thinks
side.
He thinks we should just do what Hitler wants. And he went and hid in the country like a baby when London was being bombed. And so after that resignation, public sentiment for him is not great. And it's just certain that he just won't be president. He was already up against it being Irish and Catholic, but after being like, yo, is Hitler that bad?
A truly shitty person. Yeah. That's where you draw the line. So not anymore.
That's when he shifts his focus to the kids because he's like, if I can't be president, one of my kids will.
I'm going to stage mum it.
Stage mum it big time. So first of all, and we talk a little bit about this in the Chappaquiddick episode, his oldest son, Joseph Jr., was born 1915, and he kind of starts grooming him to be president, but Joseph Jr. is killed during World War II. which a lot of people say is probably lucky because he was super anti-Semitic like his dad. Like he was of the same opinion about shouldn't we just like leave Hitler alone? Like, can you blame him? They kind of suck kind of thing. So probably good that things went a different way. Apparently his death could have been prevented. He kind of went to war mainly for the optics of it. He knew that like he wanted to be president one day. He knew that, you know, a world war breaking out meant he needed to be seen to be a big part of it and to be a big heroic part of it. And he served as a fighter pilot for like ages and nothing like majorly heroic or exciting happened, and his term like came to an end where he was allowed to leave the army. In the meantime, his younger brother, John F. Kennedy, didn't really want to go to war, was kind of like physically had a lot of issues. So he got assigned like not a particularly like physical like frontline job, but he was on a warship that got bombed and he like saved some guy and swam like 20 miles, lugging this sailor with him to some island and like wrote their location on a coconut and gave it to an island person to go and give to and so in the meantime, John F. Kennedy has this heroic war story and Joseph Jr. is like, well, he outshone me. And so there's this one massive mission, even though he's technically allowed to leave the army, he served his time. There's this one massive risky mission that they ask him to do if he wants to volunteer for it. And it's essentially this new thing they're trying where they just fill a plane with bombs and he flies the plane to like a target, a ship or whatever, and then he parachutes out of the plane and lets the plane crash into it and like explode. And it's a new thing they're trying. And he's like, yep, I'll do it because I want to be president and I need to be more heroic than my little brother. And while he's flying the plane, the bombs just explode.
Oh, he could have seen that coming.
That's the pointless way he died. So after he carks it, John F. Kennedy is the next in the Kennedy sibling line of 9 of them. He is married to a woman called Jacqueline Bouvier, who was the fanciest debutante of the year. She actually won debutante of the year she debuted.
Ew, I didn't even know they
did
that.
They do that.
It's gross enough that they have it, but they actually
you wear the white dress
someone
and it's
wins.
like, I'm available to be railed. So let's go.
That is, that's
they are a very good-looking young American couple. You know, John F. Kennedy pretty much gets a seat bought for him by his dad in Congress and the Senate, and his dad knows how to pitch him. So like he gets Jackie and John like on the cover of Life magazine and just sort of is pitching him as this like young, hot, like new political candidate, hope for the future. Jackie's beautiful. They were a cute kid. And so his dad really starts using the press to pitch him. He becomes president in 1960. They have 4 children altogether. 2 of them unfortunately die of stillbirth, like they're stillborn. The 2 children they have remaining are Caroline and John F. Kennedy Jr. Wait, is it John F. Kennedy Jr.? JFK Jr. Yeah, it's JFK Jr. Have I forgotten?
I'm the one who knows nothing about this.
No, I'm just...
I like that they just went from naming everyone Joseph or Patrick to just
naming everyone John. Yeah. So they have John Jr. JFK is then assassinated in 1963. Jackie remarries a guy called Aristotle Onassis, basically because he's super rich and the Kennedys.
And Jackie owes a full name.
Yeah, super duper looking out for her. And I think she just wants protection. He has a private island. She can keep her kids away from assassins. You know how it is.
Right.
JFK Jr., as you will know if you have listened to our episode on him, and if not, you should listen to it. He dies in a plane crash on a small aircraft that he is flying with his wife, Carolyn, in 1999. Fun fact about Jackie O, her cousins are Big Edie and Little Edie Beale, who Grey Gardens is about.
I have no idea what.
Oh my God, you don't know Grey Gardens?
No.
Well, the Gisners will know.
But I'm a
Just
gizzard.
okay, so Big Edie and Little Edie were these two. It's oh my god, this is just the gist, and it is that is like a big side quest.
Okay, but can I have like one sentence?
They were society. It's a mother and daughter, Big Edie
Yeah.
and Little Edie, and Big Edie's husband left her, and back then husbands can just leave you and you're effed. And she lived in this
Yeah.
huge mansion in like Martha's Vineyard or Hyannis Port or wherever they all live. And she eventually just kind of she lives with her daughter in this house and she has no money. All she has is the house. And so they live in it, but they have like no electricity, no water, no way to pay bills. And they kind of just live in this like dilapidated, it looks like a house from Hoarders together for like years and years and years. They have like 1,000 cats, and Jackie O is eventually told about it, and she sends like some money and people to help try and clean it up. But they became like this fascination of everyone because it was like, how can Jackie O's cousins be like essentially living like homeless people in this like falling apart mansion? And a documentary was made about them called Grey Gardens, where this documentary crew came and like sort of followed them around in their house for like a year.
Okay, and I
Yeah,
shall
it's
watch it.
amazing. And then there was a movie made about it with Drew Barrymore as Little Edie, and it's the best.
What? Is it called Grey Gardens as well?
I think so. Maybe.
Okay, this
Anyway,
is
that's a
weird.
little side
Okay.
quest for you.
Yep. Yep.
So, Jackie O and JFK's daughter, Caroline, is still alive. She goes on to have an incredibly successful political career. She has been the ambassador to Japan and Australia. She married a guy called Edwin Schlossberg in 1986. And they had 3 children. They had Rose Kennedy Schlossberg, who was born in 1988, and she's now an artist and filmmaker. They had Tatiana Kennedy Schlossberg, who was born in 1990 and very sadly died last year of cancer, and wrote a really incredible personal essay not long before she died. I'll put the link in the show notes. And they also had John Kennedy Schlossberg, who was born in, I think, 1993. He studied law, recently finished studying, and he is gunning hard to be like the next Kennedy politician. Yeah, like he lives in New York. He's at the moment like a political commentator. He leans hard into his Kennedy lineage. He's gunning to be the next Kennedy that becomes president.
He's going to have to do some horrible things if he wants to join that lineup.
Yeah. So that's where those are sort of the Kennedys of today from JFK and Jackie that you would need to know. The next Kennedy sibling is Rose Marie. So it goes Joseph Jr., John F. Kennedy, and then it's Rose Marie, or who was also called Rosemary. She was born in 1918. We're going to do a whole episode on her, so I'll give you just the gist. But we mentioned her in our episode about lobotomies. She had a lot of, I would say, mental health issues. I mean, she was never really given an official diagnosis, at least not one that the Kennedys revealed, but she was like apparently like a bit developmentally delayed. She apparently when she was being born, the doctor wasn't available when Rose was in labor, and the nurse there with her waiting for the doctor made her keep her legs together to stop the baby from coming out until the doctor got there, and so she was deprived of oxygen, and that is apparently what caused her developmental delay. She, like, in photos and video of the Kennedys, because there's a lot, because they were such a rich, famous family, even though it was the 50s and 60s, there's a lot of, like, footage and photos of them. She looks just like another one of the Kennedy kids. She debuted as a debutante to the Queen when her dad was ambassador to the UK, so she did that with her sisters. But apparently when she hit puberty, there were just issues with her wanting to live a life that intellectually she probably couldn't keep up with. Like, she there were apparently issues with her just like taking off with different men and like sneaking out at night and then not knowing how to get home. I mean, this is all coming from the Kennedys, so you don't know.
Yeah. Sounds like a normal
I mean,
teenager.
yeah, I think apparently what most of like the history around all this says is that just when she hit puberty and like started wanting more independence and seeing her siblings grow up and live more independent adult lives, she struggled with the fact that she couldn't, or maybe like her family wouldn't let her. I mean, she was working as like a sort of teacher's assistant at a nursery school. She really loved it. It's hard to say because the Kennedys were so secretive about her because she was a bit of an embarrassment to the family. It's hard to say like what she was like and whether she actually, was a danger to herself, like her father insisted.
Or she was just a teenage girl they couldn't control. And
exactly. Maybe she did have a mild intellectual disability, but other than that, like she was fine. I mean, that seems to be what the truth of it is. But regardless, Joseph Kennedy Sr. decides when she's 23 to get her this new procedure called a lobotomy. He does it without telling anyone, without telling his wife, her mother. He decides, takes her there. He is apparently, and a lot of people were hoping with lobotomies back then that it would just sort of, I guess, calm her, like make her less difficult, more placid, I suppose. But the procedure completely incapacitates her. Apparently, after the lobotomy, she is kind of like a toddler in an adult's body. Like she can no longer go to the toilet herself, feed herself, talk, or anything really. She lives with 24-hour care for the rest of her life. He doesn't tell anybody where she is for the longest time. And they have that weird waspish, white, posh family thing where they just, it's like, oh, where's Rosemary? She's gone away. Oh, okay. Yeah, like, and they don't ask. So for the longest time, she's alone. Like Joseph Kennedy Sr. pays for some nuns to kind of live in a big house taking care of her. And it's not until after he dies that her siblings find out that she's there and start going to visit her, which they do for the rest of her life. But she lives needing 24-hour care in that home until she dies in 2005, aged 86. So next in the line of siblings is Kathleen. She was also known as Kik Kennedy. Yeah, I know, Kik Kennedy. And she's born in 1920, and she seems so cool. Like she was beloved. She was beautiful. She was cool. She goes over to England as well when their dad's UK ambassador. She is just like beloved on the London scene. Her brothers love her. All the guys in London love her. She falls in love with a duke while she's there and marries him, but then he dies in the war. And then she falls in love with an earl and marries him. But then really sadly, not long after their marriage, they both die in a plane crash in 1948. She's only 28 years old and she's pregnant. It's said that either like during, like, it's just really sad. The Kennedy.
If I was a Kennedy, I would not get on a plane.
I wouldn't leave the house.
Or any form of transport. Yeah, I would just lock myself in a room.
The Kennedy family, like I said, is pretty waspish and stunted emotionally. So none of them attend her funeral except her father, who's in England at the time. She has a small plain headstone on at the estate of her Earl husband in England, and that's it. It's just like she just disappears from history. Yeah. Next in the line of siblings is Eunice. She's born in 1921. She eventually, when she grows up, marries a guy called Sergeant Shriver. She devotes her life to charity, particularly people with intellectual disabilities, because she has a really close relationship with her sister Rosemary. She helps launch the Special Olympics. So she's done quite a lot in her career with that kind of thing. She and her husband have 5 kids, and I bring them up because Eunice and Sergeant Kennedy Shriver's children are Robert Sergeant Shriver III, Maria Shriver, Timothy Shriver, Mark Shriver, and Anthony Paul Shriver. And Maria Shriver went on to marry Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1986. He went on to be the governor of California, and they had 4 children: Patrick, Catherine, Christopher, and Christina. Patrick recently starred in The White Lotus as the boy who has an incestuous night of fun with his younger brother. And Catherine Shriver married Chris Pratt, the worst, the Hollywood Chris's. So he was married to Anna Faris. They got divorced, and he married Catherine Catherine Schwarzenegger. They're super Catholic, like Maria Shriver, super Catholic. I don't know if Schwarzenegger is, but I think marrying into essentially the Kennedy family helped him a lot in his quest to become governor.
Oh, it's all a rich
I know.
tapestry.
Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger divorced a few years ago when it was revealed that Arnold had got the housekeeper prego. Eunice Shriver died in 2009, aged 88, with 19 grandchildren. Oof. Next up in the Kennedy siblings, we've got Patricia. She was born in 1924, and she was really fascinated not by the politics that her dad did, but the Hollywood studio part of what he did, because he owned a couple of Hollywood studios. So she worked for NBC, and she worked at a bunch of different production studios. She ended up marrying the movie star Peter Lawford in 1954. He was a member of the Rat Pack, so like Frank Sinatra and all of those people. And she and Peter Lawford were really good friends with Marilyn Monroe, and they are the ones who introduced Marilyn to her brother JFK and her other brother Bobby, both of whom had affairs with Marilyn. Patricia and Peter had 4 kids, none of whom are of note really for our purposes. I mean, none of them married a Schwarzenegger or were in The White Lotus.
Or did anything
it's apparently Peter Lawford was gay. I don't know if that's confirmed or if that's just rumor, or I don't know. Anyway, this is just the gist. But they divorced in 1966. She battled alcoholism and addiction issues for the rest of her life, but she did live till she lived till 82. She died in 2006. Next up in the Kennedy siblings is Robert, so otherwise known as Bobby or RFK. He was born in 1925. He's really smart, studies at Harvard, becomes a lawyer. He runs his older brother JFK's presidential campaign, and he becomes when JFK is president, Bobby Kennedy becomes America's Attorney General, which a lot of people were really pissed off with at the time, but they're the Kennedys and they do whatever the hell they want. After JFK is assassinated in 1963, Bobby runs for president himself in 1968, but he is also during his presidential campaign, which people say he was a lock to win, he was sadly assassinated at a campaign stop. He was married to a woman called Ethel Skakel. This is where
is one of the connections.
This is the Kennedy tentacles, they're everywhere. So they got married in 1950, and Ethel kind of went on to be considered the Kennedy matriarch after Rose, the mother, died. Bobby and Ethel Skakel, who, became Ethel Kennedy, had 11 children. Like, Ethel just hunkered down and was the ultimate Kennedy wife. Like, knew that he had affairs, knew that he went off and, but she was like, I'm a Kennedy wife. It is my job to stay at the mansion at Hyannisport and just churn out babies.
Yeah, they're like
beggars. So kind of. And so I won't go into like all of their children because there's a lot of them, but the one you need to know about is RFK Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr. He was born in 1954, and he went on to become a crazy anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorist, and Trump recently appointed him head of Health and Human Services. You would have seen him in the news. You would have heard ridiculous things he's said about, like, he believes, vaccines are linked to autism, and he talks about having brain worms, and he's had 3 wives, the third of which he's currently with, which is Cheryl Hines. She's, the famous actress from Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's kind of been shunned from Hollywood since RFK
Marrying an
has,
idiot.
gone hardcore in the Trump thing. The last time I saw either of them on camera was it became quite infamous footage at the Correspondents' Dinner in Washington a couple of months ago, where there was someone shooting in the room, and there's this really funny footage where you're like, oh, Cheryl, is this the horse you chose to back? Where he and his bodyguards, like, he just sprints off with his bodyguards, and she's walking behind in her heels, like, by herself. Like, guys, wait. Like, he doesn't even turn around to see if she's okay. He's just like, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. So that's of the 11 kids of Ethel and Bobby, he's probably the most prominent one now. Also, though, connected to Ethel Kennedy, she had a nephew on, like, her maiden name side. So she was Ethel Skakel before she became Ethel Skakel Kennedy. And her nephew, a guy called Michael Skakel, was charged with murdering his neighbor, Martha Moxley, when they were both 15. He wasn't charged, though, until quite a few years later in 1998. A grand jury, after an investigation was reopened, a grand jury voted to indict him and send him to trial. At the time, during this trial, he was supported publicly and passionately by his cousin, JFK Jr. Anyway,
there's a really good podcast on that whole situation.
He was found guilty in 2002 and sentenced to 20 years in prison. In 2003, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who we were just talking about, wrote a very passionate article in The Atlantic called A Miscarriage of Justice, insisting that his charge was triggered by an inflamed media and that an innocent man is now in prison. Basically, he only got charged because he's linked to the Kennedys. It's crazy to me that a Kennedy got sent to prison at all, but don't worry, it didn't last long because he's a Kennedy. Well, he's a Kennedy adjacent.
Yeah. But they sure made a lot out of it.
So in 2013, he'd been in prison for 11 years and a new trial was ordered because, they have the best lawyers just finding all the reasons. This is just the gist. I won't go into it, but a new trial was ordered and they managed to get him released on bail to wait for the new trial. I think the bail was like $1.3 million or something. And then his lawyers just were doing appeal after appeal after appeal, delaying the trial. And in 2020, the prosecutor's office announced that, like, they're just not going to do the retrial. They're just dropping it. So
yeah, we're bored of this.
Got away with murder. Well, I mean, he was in prison for 11 years, but not the full 20.
Put the that podcast in the show.
I will,
because it's really good.
Give me the link. Yeah. What is it?
I will. It's what happened to Martha, or
something like that. I've listened to that. Yeah, something. Another.
They all name them the same thing.
Yeah. What happened to Martha? Last night, James was watching some show. It's some new show with this actor I like, and I said, "Oh, I've seen that. What is this about?" And he told me, and I said, "Oh, I thought it was just like, murder in a cozy town. Like, all shows now are just murder in a cozy town." Or like, that kind of thing. It's like, and all podcasts are like, what happened to this woman?
What happened?
Like, So next up in the siblings is Jean Kennedy. She was born in 1928. She married a businessman. They kept a lower profile than most of the other Kennedys. She just kind of kept her head down and was quite a successful politician and government worker herself. She was an ambassador to Ireland under President Clinton. Her and her husband had 4 children, 2 biologically, Stephen and William, and 2 adopted daughters, Amanda and Kim. William was charged with rape in 1991 in a very famous case. It was hugely covered in the media because the woman accusing him spoke up about it. He was 31 years old. There was a massive trial that was covered in the media nightly. And of course, he's a Kennedy. He was acquitted. And
what's that? That does not ring any bells.
Yeah, it's like,
was her name largely out
her
there?
name was Patricia Bowman. She was a single mother and spoke eloquently and definitively about what happened to her. And
How do they do that? How do they just bury things so
I mean, go listen to the
completely?
Chappaquiddick episode, guys, if you haven't.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
wait,
you
I
were
was
there.
there though,
No,
and I
Kennedy machine. I don't know. Like
yeah, it's
money,
freaky.
power, influence. It's justice is different for people.
I hate this
Justice is
world.
different.
Mm.
And lastly, of all the Kennedy siblings is Edward Kennedy, otherwise known as Ted, who we did the episode on about Chappaquiddick. He was born in 1932. He was the last of the Kennedy children of Joseph Sr. and Rose. He, after Chappaquiddick, in which he left a woman to die in a car that he crashed, a woman called Mary Jo Kopechne, he had a pretty disastrous run for president, in which Haley is crying, laughing in our episode when I read out his answer that he hadn't really thought about when asked, why do you want to run for president? And his face was just kind of like, because I'm Kennedy and I want it. And he didn't know how to answer.
So good. I watched it instantly afterwards, and I watched it probably
It's
like
so
I don't even know how many times because I just could not
I know.
stop laughing. I was like, there is more dopamine to be
I know.
extracted from
And when I gave the episode to James to edit, I was like, oh, I wasn't going to read that much of the speech, but like Haley just kept laughing, and I was like, kind of like, oh, I'm on fire. So I just kept reading it, and I was like, but you can cut it. It probably doesn't all need to be there. And then when James finished editing, he was like, no, I left the whole thing in. It's so funny. I was like, yeah.
Oh, now I'm thinking about it again. It really was just as bad as that
A girl
the
going,
yeah, the Miss
because
Universe or
our kids
whatever.
don't have maps,
And
such as Iraq
Africa
and
and
such as, and his answer is like that. It's so
It's
just
so funny though.
of all of these Kennedy kids, he's like the youngest. He's the dud, and because his his oldest brother died in the war, then his two older brothers were assassinated. He was the only one left to be president. But yeah, he has a pretty disastrous run. Can't even answer the simplest question. So he doesn't become president, but he does stay in his Senate seat for 40 years. When he dies in 2009, aged 77, he's called like the Lion of the Senate. Chappaquiddick's barely like a footnote to him. I won't go into all of Chappaquiddick now because we have a whole episode on it. Go listen to it. He has 3 children. Again, not really any of note for our purposes because none of them were in White Lotus or raped anyone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they might just be good, decent people living their lives. Boring.
Joseph Kennedy Sr. Ended up having a pretty catastrophic stroke when JFK was president, and so he ended up essentially paralyzed in a wheelchair for the last years of his life, and saw 2 of his sons get assassinated, and saw that his only possible son left and only chance of being president again was total dud Ted. So I kind of like that he died feeling defeated like that.
Yes. Can I ask a tangential question that you might not know? But what is what are the criteria for being assassinated as opposed to murdered?
That is a good question. Is it? I mean, surely it's because it's in public. I mean, I guess it is called a murder too.
Yeah, but like if I went and got shot in the city, I wouldn't have been assassinated.
How is assassination different to murder? Hold on. Okay, wait. Murder refers to the crime of deliberately causing someone's death, while assassinate refers to the act of taking the life of an important person. Oh, wow. Oh, so it's only if you're important.
But like,
who decides? Imagine if you got what's the, am I important enough or no? Probably not.
No,
not assassinated. Not. I'd be murdered.
No.
It'd be like, no, I'm just like going, because I have like the minorest profile. So I'm like, where on the line?
No, but it's
John Lennon, they say assassinated.
Yeah, that's true.
But then someone like say Dorothy Stratton, the Playboy, they say murdered.
Yeah, murdered. Yes. Okay, I feel like there's a PhD in this.
Interesting. Although Dorothy
Yeah.
Stratton was different because that was a domestic violence situation. But like,
Yeah, but
is it just
still,
like,
if the only
is it
thing
someone who like
is,
doesn't know
yeah,
you coming up and shooting you for like some kind of ideological reason?
yeah, like as a, yeah, yeah, maybe.
Is it?
I don't know. I mean, that kind of
Guys,
tracks, but has that just
13, 22,
been?
52, 60. Let us know. 'Cause even,
How do I become important enough to get
I mean, the
assassinated?
top search result here is a Reddit thread. So like,
Why do you say that? Like Reddit isn't the font of all
no, but I'm
knowledge.
like, I can't. Okay, wait. Hold on. Wait, okay. How important do you have to be to have been assassinated rather than murdered? And then someone says, if the motivation is political, then it's assassination. Otherwise, it's murder. You cannot be assassinated by accident. Well, yeah. If a jilted ex murders the prince of wherever, it's just a murder. If a jilted ex is also a member of a rival political faction, it may be assassination. If a jilted ex is driving home in tears and accidentally runs over the prince of wherever in the middle of the night in a neighborhood where the streetlights are out, it's manslaughter. Okay.
What is that person just ranting on? We had a
I
simple
know.
question. So
Mm.
there has to be some sort of political element to
13,
it.
22, 52, 60. If you know this very specific piece of information, let us know because that is a good question. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I do not know.
it sounds like the term kind of took on a life of its own, and
Well, for
you know,
example,
like it.
like JFK and Bobby Kennedy were assassinated. Bobby Kennedy's
Mm,
nephew, Michael Skakel, murdered Martha Moxley, not assassinated.
mm, mm. Yeah, can you assassinate a teenager?
Well, I mean, what if it's like, what if you assassinated, like, say, Prince
Oh
William?
yeah, like a first daughter or
Yeah,
something.
when he
Yeah,
was a teenager. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. That would definitely. Yeah, that would be
Wouldn't it?
assassinate.
Okay. Yeah, I want to know
Yeah.
this now. Okay.
Okay. Just the gist of assassination.
Let us know, guys. 13, 22, 52, 60. And so that is kind of just the gist of the Kennedy family. That is, you know, Joseph and Rose were the parents that had those kids, and those were the ones who were presidents, senators, whatever. And those are the ones who then have had their kids, and their grandkids have spread far and wide. But the ones we all kind of know now are mainly Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger's kids. RFK,
So many fun
no,
surnames to say. Schwarzenegger,
Skakel,
Skakel. Skakel is so fun to say for some
and
reason.
then RFK Jr., who's obviously a tinfoil hat crazy person in the Trump administration now. You know, there was JFK Jr. and Carolyn. There's Jack Schlossberg, who's
Oh yeah, Schwarzenegger. What a good
hoping to
one.
be the sort of next Kennedy in the White House. And they've all sort of, you know, they're all out there. They spread far and wide. But it's funny to me, particularly with Jack Schlossberg.
I don't know if you've said anyone's surname
So
first though
hard.
this
I know there's
entire
so many. Sorry,
episode.
guys.
Schloss,
Well, I've
Schloss,
had
Schloss.
barley belly for like 11 days. This is the first time I'm
Oh,
talking
okay.
this much in so long. But he all of a sudden started referring to himself as Jack Kennedy Schlossberg. He even, like, Bouvier's in there too, Jack Bouvier Kennedy Schlossberg. Just to remind everyone, his, you know, grandparents,
Yeah, just cover all of the famous
JFK
faces.
and Jackie.
I mean,
And he's
would
gunning
as
for
well.
it. It's interesting to me though, like, he is really gunning for it and connecting himself to the Kennedy, like, myth of Camelot, and connecting himself to the Kennedy name as if it is still a political advantage. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I would consider it that. But again, this is one of my weird fixations in that I think a lot of people do still
Yeah.
think the Kennedys are just this mythical, like, example of a time when politics was filled with honor and respect, and they don't make politicians like that anymore. And
Yeah.
a lot of
Which
people think
that
that
I
still.
was that
Yeah.
ignorant fool mere months
Yeah.
ago, and I would have been like, "Oh wow, a Kennedy," and now I'm like, "Oh wow, a
Yeah.
Kennedy."
They just assault lots of
This is what
women
you're
and get
doing for
away
the
with
world,
it.
Regan.
Essentially, like, the Kennedys mostly suck. They mostly
Yeah.
suck.
Ew. Do you know what this needs? Like an infographic family tree type
Okay.
situation where we can trace it all and
Yes.
like circle the ones that link out to
Yes.
other things.
No,
And
that's.
I feel like
I mean,
I
Taylor
would.
Swift dated one of them for a while.
Oh,
I'm pretty
really?
sure she dated Patrick, the one who was in White Lotus.
Which one?
But they're all called
Oh, yeah,
Joseph
right,
Patrick
right.
or Patrick Joseph. So who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And all the women, like, there were a lot of roses.
There's a lot
in
of
them.
Roses. There's a lot of Rose, Rosemary, Kathleen's. There's a lot. They're the Irish. They like reusing those names. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of. I hope that's given you a 101.
Yeah, I feel like I need to listen to it 3 more times and make the infographic, and then I might kind of get my head around it.
Well, it was just kind of like how they came to America, the main siblings in that first block of family, and then any notable children or grandchildren they have had. But
Yeah.
they're all still out there.
Cool.
They're all still out there.
It's depressing that if ever any of my descendants do anything notorious or famous or cool, I will not be named as one of the main
Oh,
people.
yeah.
in
You'll
their
be, if I was
lineage.
doing the podcast, I'd be like, and there's no one else of note in that part of the family.
Yeah, and that would just be me. Oh, I need to go out and assassinate someone or something so that I can not be a footnote in my
Or
future.
murder once we know the difference.
No, I will assassinate.
Because that's an important person, apparently. Okay.
Yeah. And
I'll
it
get
sounds
back to
better.
you. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, actually, no, delete that. Then my assassination plan will not go to
All right.
come to pass.
That was just the gist of the Kennedy's 101. Thank you, everyone, so much. Bye. Thank you for listening to Just the Gist, a Just the Network production. Executive produced and hosted by me, Rosie Waterland. Produced and edited by James Joseph with additional production support from JTG team Kate Lever and Hayley Stavely and Acast legends Guy Scott Wilson and Simon McDermott. Looking for breaking news? It drops on the Just the Gist Patreon every Tuesday, along with a whole lot of other bonus audio, video, and behind-the-scenes content, which you can access for just $1, $1 a week by clicking the link in the show notes or searching Just the Gist Podcast on Patreon. Follow Just the Gist on Instagram and TikTok at Just the Gist Podcast, and watch the video version of every episode on our YouTube channel, also at, funnily enough, Just the Gist Podcast. Follow Rosie, that's me, in all of the places at Rosie Waterland. Want to give us a suggestion? Tell Rosie to stop singing so much? Email us at hello@justthegist.com.au. Thank you, as always, for listening. Now go say something impressive at a dinner party. Bye.